Have you pressed start yet?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Federal Transit Administration's informational webinar for the FY21 Innovative, Coordinated, and Access and Mobility Competitive Program. Throughout this webinar, you're going to learn a lot of good information about how to apply for this competitive program. My name is Mary Ann Stock, and I'm the Chief of Rural and Targeted Programs with the FTA. I wanted to start by thanking the representatives of the agency members of the Coordinated Council on Access and Mobility, or CCAM, who helped us develop this grant opportunity. The opportunity focuses on transportation coordination, and you're going to hear more about the CCAM later on in the webinar. I have a couple of housekeeping notes to start us off. The recording of this webinar and a copy of the slides will be available on the website where you saw the announcement for the ICAM program next week. If you have any questions as we're going through the webinar, please enter them into the Q&A box, and we'll get to as many as possible of those before we end our time together here. The presentation is going to be done by Destiny Buchanan, who is FTA's program manager for the ICAM program, and she also manages the Section 5310 Mobility for Older Adults and People with Disabilities program. Walt Moke of FTA's Grants Management Division will also present in the last portion of the presentation regarding how to use the grants.gov site to apply. Alon Flippen, who is our program manager for rural programs, will be helping with the Q&A portion of our webinar, and Danielle Nelson, who staffs the CCAM, and I may also chime in during the Q&A period. So without further ado, I am pleased to introduce Destiny Buchanan, who will begin the webinar.
Thank you, Mary Ann. And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to the fiscal year 21 ICAM informational webinar. Again, my name is Destiny Buchanan, and I am the Section 5310 Program Manager in the Office of Program Management. Today, we will be going over the Notice of Funding Opportunity in the following order. I'll start with the program overview. We'll do previous competitions, eligibility, the evaluation criteria, review and selection, and then I'll hand it over to Walt Moke for the application submission. Afterwards, we'll end with the Q&A. Please put all of your questions in the Q&A section of your chats, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. I will also be giving an announcement periodically throughout the webinar to remind you to put your questions in the chat. Let's begin. Program overview. Section 3006B of the FAST Act authorizes FTA to award grants for ICAM, whose projects improve the coordination of transportation services and non-emergency medical transportation services for the transportation disadvantaged community. Transportation disadvantaged in this instance refers to older adults, people with disabilities, and people of low income. In regards to funding, this is a competitive grant. The criteria that will be used to select projects is outlined in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Similar to last year's Mobility for All grants, these grants can only be used for capital expenditures, including mobility management that are included in the State Transportation Improvement Plan or the Transportation Improvement Plan, also known as the STIP or TIP. Funds are only available for projects that have not incurred costs prior to the announcement of project selections, which will be on FTA's website. This is when pre-award authority begins. Again, pre-award authority begins when the projects are announced on FTA's website. Funding is available for obligation the year of award +2. That means if funding is awarded in fiscal year 2022, you have until the end of fiscal year 2024 to obligate those funds. For cost sharing, scalability, and matching funds, this grant has an 80% federal share and 20% non-federal match requirement. Eligible sources of local match include cash and in-kind contributions, The in-kind contributions must be documented in the application. I've included sources of local match, which you will have access to when the slides are posted. Successful applications will document their source of local match. You are not required to have the match before applying. However, you can still apply as long as you document that you will have the match before obligation. FTA encourages applicants to identify scaled funding options in the event that insufficient funding is available to fund a project at the fully requested amount. This can be done in the scalability section of the project budget on the supplemental form. The applicant is asked to identify the minimum amount of federal funds necessary to achieve the objectives of the program and meet all relevant program requirements. You must include an explanation of how a reduced award would affect the project and what the reduced project would look like. This slide has the dates to remember for the NOFO. We currently have $3.5 million to award for this program, with the option to add more if available. The NOFO was awarded on the 7th of this month and remains open for 60 days, which means applications are due by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on December 6th. Projects will be selected by spring of 2022. Again, project selections will be announced via the FTA website. If you had any questions on the previous slides, please put them in the Q&A. We'll now begin the section on previous competitions. Historically, each competition has been different. The 2016 and the 2018-2019 grants both utilize funds from two different sources, which allow for capital and operating grants, while the 2020 and the 2021 grants were funded under one funding source, the 3006B, for capital-only grants. 19 grants were funded in 2016, with 11 of those grants being capital-only. 37 grants were funded in 2018-2019, with 23 of those grants receiving capital-only funding. 17 capital-only grants were funded in 2020 to 16 states. On average, 38% of the projects serve rural areas. In the history of this program, we have received a range of 15 to 126 eligible projects, between 15 to 37 million total funds requested each competition. There's been between $2 to $3.5 million available to award, and between 17 to 37 grants have been awarded, ranging from $3.5 to $9.6 million awarded between the three competitions. You will see from this slide that we often fund a wide range of projects in each region, and the list changes each year. Now I will take the time to give a quick overview of the Coordinating Council on Access and Mobility, or CCAM for short. The CCAM is a federal interagency council that works at the federal level to improve coordination of transportation resources and to address barriers faced by states, regions, and local communities when coordinating transportation. It was established in 2004 to coordinate the efforts of the federal agencies that fund transportation for three targeted populations: people with disabilities, older adults, and individuals of low income. The CCAM vision is equal access to coordinated transportation for all Americans. The CCAM is led by the US DOT. There are 10 CCAM member agencies, and they are all listed here. Together, the CCAM promoted accessible, efficient, and effective transportation options to serve the older adults, people with disabilities, and those with low incomes. CCAM agencies represent more than 130 federal programs that support transportation services. The 11 CCAM agencies fund programs with the exception of the National Council of Disability, also known as the NCD. NCD is responsible for advising Congress and federal agencies on policies and programs that affect people with disabilities. The CCAM mission is to issue policy recommendations and implement activities that improve the availability, accessibility, and efficiency of transportation for the targeted populations. Successful projects will work collaboratively and leverage partnerships with agencies that are funding recipients for the federal agencies that are members of the CCAM. Here's a sample of the 130 federal programs in the CCAM program inventory. These 130 programs allow at least some program funds to be spent on human service transportation. For most of these programs, transportation is only an allowable expense if it supports the program's main goal. For example, transportation to take people to medical appointments, employment opportunities, training, or education. The program inventory also contains detailed information on all of these programs, including state, regional, or local recipient, allowable transportation expenses, focus of the program, primary population served, and more. Transportation and human service providers may use the CCAM program inventory to identify opportunities to collaborate with local partners to provide more transportation services to their communities. You can use the CCAM program inventory to identify opportunities to collaborate with new or state regional partners. If you had any questions on those sections, please put them in the Q&A. I will now go over eligibility. Eligible applicants are state DOTs, designated recipients of the Section 5310 program, local government entities that operate a public transportation service, and eligible subrecipients of the Section 5310 program that have the authority and technical capacity to implement a regional or statewide cost allocation pilot. Eligible applicants do not have to be current recipients or subrecipients of the Section 53 program, just eligible. Eligible applicants must serve as the lead agency of a regional or statewide consortium that includes stakeholders from the transportation, healthcare, human service, or other sectors. The lead agency refers to the eligible applicant, and the consortium refers to partners. Partners can be any combination of stakeholders from other transportation providers to non-transportation providers such as healthcare, human service, or other sectors. For example, a lead agency could be an eligible local government entity that operates a public transportation service that has a statewide consortium with other transportation providers. Another example could be an eligible 5310 subrecipient with the authority and technical capacity to implement a regional or statewide cost allocation pilot that enters into a regional or statewide consortium with a mixture of transportation and healthcare providers. The consortium must be in place before the application, but you can add more partners or clarify partner roles as the pilot progresses. The CCAM program inventory is a good place to begin identifying opportunities to collaborate with local partners. The consortium is evaluated in the planning and partnership section. A strong application will clearly state the nature of the consortium and the roles and commitment of each of the partners along with supporting documentation. There will be a few more details on that in the planning and partnership section of the presentation. Eligible projects are capital projects as defined in 49 U.S.C. 5302, Section 3. FTA may make grants to assist in financing innovative projects for transportation disadvantaged populations that improve the coordination of transportation services and non-emergency medical transportation services, including regional or statewide mobility management projects, the deployment of coordination technology, and regional or statewide projects that create or increase access to one-call, one-click centers. FTA's goal for these pilot programs is to identify and test promising innovative coordinated mobility strategies that other communities can replicate. Only one project may be included in each application. If you have any questions on those sections, please put them in the Q&A. In this section, the evaluation criteria, I'll be going over how to answer the questions in the NOPO and what FTA is looking for. My biggest piece of advice for this section is to answer the questions fully and provide evidence. Project selection is based on the evaluation criteria provided in the NOPO. In the demonstration of need, we are looking for the applicants to answer how the project will address the need for regional or statewide mobility management capital projects. FTA will consider the scope of the overall need or challenge as described in the application. This means our evaluation is based solely on the narrative an applicant provides. Tell us why your specific project is needed. For the demonstration of benefit, this is one of our biggest sections. Here you will discuss what the project's benefits are and how those benefits address the ICAM goals and objectives listed in section E1B of the NOPO. FTA will use this section to determine if the proposed projects will yield data demonstrating the impacts of the pilot program. All projects should include specific performance measures the proposed projects will use to quantify the actual outcomes versus the expected outcomes. This is necessary for our annual report to Congress and as a requirement of the program. Successful projects will have benefits that address the ICAM goals and objectives. In the planning and partnership section, we are looking for applicants to describe the eligible project and identify the project partners and their specific roles. When you identify the project partners and their specific roles in the project, you are telling us what kind of regional or statewide consortium you have entered into and should provide documents. It could be the memoranda of agreement or letters of support from the relevant state agencies, stakeholders, or partner organizations supporting their commitment. Remember, successful applicants provide documentation and clearly specify their partners' roles and commitments. In the local financial commitment sections, we are looking for applicants to identify the source of the local share and describe whether the funds are currently available or will need to be secured. FTA will consider the availability of the local share as evidence of local financial commitment to the project. Strong applications will provide evidence or documentation of local share commitment. In regards to project readiness, FTA is looking for the project's short, mid, and long-term goals, the specific performance measures, and the ongoing involvement of the project's target population or populations. FTA will evaluate projects based on the extent to which it was developed involving key stakeholders and the target groups and providers, as well as the proposed schedule and the applicant's demonstrated ability to implement it, i.e., is the proposed timeline feasible and can it be completed in time? For the technical, legal, and financial capacity section, FTA will evaluate proposals on the capacity of the lead agency and any partners to successfully execute the pilot effort. We will be making sure there are no outstanding legal, technical, or financial issues that would make the project high risk. FTA will evaluate proposals for feasibility and longer-term sustainability of both the pilot project as well as the proposed project at full deployment. FTA intends to select projects with a high likelihood of long-term success and sustainability. If you had any questions on those sections, please put them in the Q&A. Here I'll be talking about the review and selection process. The technical evaluation review teams will be made up of federal staff that will evaluate proposals based on the published evaluation criteria that was identified in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. FTA will give priority consideration to projects that support the following 3 initiatives: Justice 40, racial equity, and barriers to opportunities. If applicable, FTA will also consider the extent to which the application presents a plan to address workforce impacts of autonomous vehicles or other innovative motor vehicle technologies. These are all additional considerations and are not required. The goal of the Justice 40 initiative is to deliver 40% of the overall benefits of relevant federal investments to disadvantaged communities. A community is either a group of individuals living in geographic proximity to one another or a geographically dispersed set of individuals, such as migrant workers or Native Americans, where either type of group experiences common conditions. If a project supports the Justice 40 initiative, FTA is asking applicants to describe how the project supports the initiative, identify the disadvantaged community, and describe the project's benefits. There's a space on the supplemental form that allows you to mark whether or not the project supports the initiative and to answer the questions provided. For racial equity and barriers and opportunity, FTA will give priority considerations to applications that have considered racial equity in the planning stage and are designed with specific elements to address racial equity and overcoming barriers to opportunities for underserved communities. If a project supports racial equity and barriers to opportunity, FTA is asking applicants to indicate which planning policies are related to racial equity and barriers to opportunities they are implementing or have implemented, provide the specific investment details, provide all project investment costs for the project that are related to racial equity and barriers to opportunities. There is a section provided on the supplemental form separately for both racial equity and barriers to opportunities. I will now turn the presentation over to Walt Mulkey to give an overview on applying for FTA grants and grants.gov.
Thank you, Destiny. This portion of the webinar is to inform applicant organizations about the resources available on the FTA website, on the grants.gov website, and also the application process. Next slide, please. FTA funding opportunities are published on the FTA website, the Federal Register, and also on the grants.gov website. We recommend that applicants begin their search and application process on the FTA Funding Opportunities NOFO page, shown on the slide. Using the NOFO page as your start point, it will provide links to related information and links to other websites and resources to assist with the application process. To locate the FTA NOFO page, go to the FTA homepage at fta.dot.gov. At the top of the page, click on Funding and then select Applying, and then click on Notices of Funding on the left side of the page. The Notices of Funding page provides links to all current or active FTA opportunities that are available. Click on the Opportunity ID, which is hyperlinked to the FTA website NOFO summary page. If you click on the grant program, this link brings you to the program page, which is sponsoring this discretionary funding opportunity and similarly soliciting applicants. If you're searching for old or expired notices, they're also available on a separate menu directly under the Notices of Funding. Next slide, please. As mentioned previously, the FTA NOFO page contains a summary of the opportunity announcements, important dates such as application deadlines, an explanation of eligibility requirements, and also the links to grants.gov site. Additionally, it has the Fta Supplemental Form, the Federal Register notice, and other relevant information about the FTA programs which may assist applicants in developing and submitting a successful proposal or application. The supplemental form is a fillable PDF form, which is an FTA product. It is used to capture the key elements of the applicant's proposal. This form contains fill-in blanks for information, which will be used by FTA to evaluate the proposed projects and the funding requested. This form must be attached to the application in grants.gov in order to receive consideration. Please note, do not use forms from prior years or attempt to create your own PDF forms in lieu of using the provided supplemental form. Please use only the current form. And provided on the FTA website. Next slide, please. Once you click on the blue hyperlinked opportunity ID on the NOFO page, you will be taken to a grants.gov site. The grants.gov site, highlighted in blue, contains 4 tabs: the synopsis, the version history, related documents, and the package, which is the application package. This is also the page where you can begin to apply for this funding opportunity. The Synopsis tab provides similar information which we published on the FTA website, but also shows if any changes have been posted or added to the grants.gov site. It provides key dates and related regulatory references. The version history tab is just that, a history of changes to the opportunity announcement on grants.gov that have been made since the original posting. The related documents tab. This leads to a folder in which documents related to this funding opportunity. It includes items such as the Federal Register notice, the supplemental form to be used with this opportunity, and additional information for the application. The last tab, the package tab, contains references and links to download and apply for this opportunity. Also, note that anyone can download this application package from grants.gov, but only individuals who have been designated as the grants.gov as authorized organizational representatives can submit an application. Next slide, please. This slide shows the contents of the application package available on grants.gov, the mandatory SF-424, the lobbying form, and the attachment form used to attach supporting materials for the application. Please note that the application package does not include the Fda Supplemental Form. Next slide. This slide depicts a screenshot of the Fda Supplemental Form. Each opportunity has its own form. The supplemental form must be downloaded separately and is to be attached to the application on the attachment form. It's also a way for applicants to include documents in supporting or substantiating the application process. The supplemental form is a fillable PDF used to capture information FDA needs to evaluate your project. Do not attach any scanned copies of the supplemental form. The PDF must be filled in with text, otherwise FDA will have to reject the application. Also, do not submit forms from prior years or for other programs. Next slide. Applicants who have not previously applied on grants.gov must visit grants.gov and click the Applicants tab to register. Applicants who have been previously applied are still encouraged to review the Applicants tab in grants.gov to make sure they have the latest information about the application process, as well as any changes in grants.gov. The Applicants tab will walk you through the process of registering on grants.gov, as well as help you check to make sure you have the correct or compatible versions of Adobe Acrobat. This site will also provide you with training, if needed, on the use of grants.gov in the application process. Please note that there is an Adobe compatibility check, as I mentioned, on this side to ensure the applicants are using the correct version of the software package in order to submit their application. This site also provides the option to download the software if needed. There are many instances where applicants frequently encounter technical issues which while submitting their applications because they're using a different version of Adobe Acrobat or what has been specified by grants.gov. Next slide, please. For new applicants to grants.gov or federal funds, the grants.gov site assists organizations with the registration process in the system for award management and with obtaining DUNS number or currently the Unique Entity Identifier UEI codes. Next slide, please. Organizations that are registered in grants.gov can create a workspace in which grant proposal teams can collaborate to develop the application proposal and share associated documents. This workspace eliminates the need for emailing documents between team members. Grants.gov has been enhanced to allow applicant organizations the workspace in which assigned individuals can collaborate, share files, and perform varied tasks to develop the application. This also is a place from which the authorized organizational representative can submit the completed application to grants.gov. Please review the workspace information in grants.gov and identify the type of workspace needed by your team who will prepare the application. Please review the roles and the privileges, and remember that only authorized organizational representatives can submit an application. Note that FDA is accepting applications submitted via grants.gov from organizations and not individuals. So organizations must be registered in grants.gov as well as in SAM, and all the information and pertinent links are available on the applicant tab of the grants.gov site. Next slide, please. Lastly, if you encounter any technical issues or problems while working on the application or submitting the application, please address these concerns directly to grants.gov help. Please related questions to program issues should be addressed to the FDA program manager shown in the note for opportunity. This completes my portion. Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, back to me. So here are a few key things to remember. The grant submission deadline is December 6, 2021, before 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The grant award announcement is projected in spring 2022 and will be announced on the FTA website. Get started now if you have not already, in case there are technical difficulties. Review your project budget and make sure it lines up properly and that the percentages of the local match are correct. And as always, tell your story and back it up with the data and supporting documentation. We will now start the Q&A section. If we don't get to your question today, my name is Destiny Buchanan. My phone number is on the screen. It's in the notice of funding opportunity, and my email was on screen and in the notice of funding opportunity, as well as on the grants.gov website.
Great, thank you, Destiny. That was a lot of information, good information, and we do have some questions that have been submitted. The first one is just a general question related to eligible applicants, and I know you went into a lot of detail about this, but the question is, can you go over eligible applicants and the regional statewide consortium? I'm sorry. Yes, again, can you go over the eligible applicants and the regional statewide information you shared earlier?
Of course, thank you, Alon. So eligible applicants are, again, the state DOTs, designated recipients of the Section 5310 program, local government entities that operate a public transportation service, and eligible subrecipients of the Section 5310 program that have the authority and technical capacity to implement a regional or statewide cost allocation project. A mouthful. You do not have to be a current Section 5310 recipient or subrecipient just eligible to receive Section 5310 funds. All of the applicants that were listed are eligible to receive Section 5310 funds if they don't already. Eligible subrecipients for Section 5310 include state or local government authorities, private nonprofit organizations, or operators of public transportation. The direct recipients of Section 5310 program can also apply. As for the consortium, a consortium is an association of two or more individuals, companies, organizations, or governments, or any combination of these entities with the objective of participating in a common activity or pooling their resources for achieving a common goal. The regional or statewide consortium refers to the partnerships you enter into. The applicant must serve as the lead agency in the consortium, but the members of the consortium can be subrecipients of the pilot program if they qualify as subrecipients of the Section 5310 program. The consortium has to be in place before the application, but additional partners can be added and roles can be clarified as the pilot progresses. Just to give another example, a different one from earlier, the lead agency could be a state DOT with a statewide consortium between transportation providers, and non-transportation providers could be healthcare and human service providers. At a regional level, the lead agency might be a designated Section 5310 recipient with a consortium of transportation, healthcare, and human service providers in the region. And I hope that answered all of the questions for eligible applicants and regional statewide consortiums.
Okay, great. Thank you. There's another one. Do we need to have a regional or statewide project?
Yes. This year, we're looking to fund projects that are at a regional or statewide level. So those are the projects that we are looking for.
Okay. And there was a question related to, is operating eligible or available? And I think the answer is no.
Correct. Only capital funds this year, although they have been available in the past.
Okay, perfect. I have some more actually. Here we have a question that asks, what is the funding timeline after award? Is it immediate or are there more steps, including budgeting, funding approval, etc.? And how long do you expect the process to take?
So I'll take a stab at that. That depends on each recipient. You have, like I said, you have within the year of apportionment and 2 years to obligate those funds. So it just depends on how long it takes you to get the grant together. And then after you've obligated those funds, you have 24 months to complete that project.
There's also, I think this question may be related to like when the funds lapse, which you just spoke to, but it asks, what was the date of completion for the grant again? And it's the year obligated plus 2, or
Correct.
the year made available plus 2. I'm sorry.
Yes,
confuse
the year
folks.
available plus 2. So I'm going to say fiscal year 22, then you would have fiscal year 22 to obligate, fiscal year 23 to obligate, and fiscal year 24 to obligate. October 1st of 2024, the funds would lapse because that would be fiscal year 25.
Got it. So the funds need to be obligated by the end of fiscal year 24.
Yes.
Then there's a question that asks, what is the minimum maximum funding award limit? If there is one.
We do not have one for this program, but we do have a project scalability. We do ask that you put that into your projects in case the funds, we need more money to fund.
Perfect. Okay. Next question says, can you confirm that unlike some FTA grants that allow for non-DOT federal funds to be used as match, the match on these grants cannot be from any federal source?
Correct. We require a non-federal match for these funds.
Can you elaborate on what is meant by capital expenditure?
So just capital projects, the mobility management, the vehicles, capital. I'm going to popcorn Marianne on the capital. I don't think I'm explaining that.
Sure. So capital project, as Destiny mentioned, under this program, similar to the Section 5310 program, mobility management can be considered a capital expense. Capital expenses are generally things like the purchase of a vehicle, it could be the purchase of any type of an asset that's going to have a useful life of more than 1 year. So it could be equipment. What it is not is, maybe it's easier to think of it that way, operating expenses, which mean usually in our context, we usually think about the cost of operating a public transit service. So paying for the driver, the fuel, things like that, that is not eligible as a capital expense. For more information on that, you can look in just about any program circular at the FTA, but most likely for this program, if you look at the definition of a capital project in the Section 5310 program circular that's available on the FTA website, that might be helpful.
I agree. And to add to that, I would look at the traditional projects for Section 5310 because those are all capital expenditures.
Yes, good point.
Great, thank you. That was helpful information. We have a question asking, would a senior center with no transportation be eligible?
Depends on if they're doing a regional or statewide projects.
Yeah, they didn't provide any further information on that.
If this is Marianne, it would be an eligible applicant, but you also have to consider the eligible projects and the projects we're looking for as well. But I will popcorn Marianne.
Well, I was just going to say that it's likely that it's possible that a senior center under those circumstances might be an eligible subrecipient or an eligible member of the consortium if there is one in that area where the senior center is being served. So I think it's, as Destiny said, if they're not actually operating transportation and they don't have, it's unlikely that they would be an eligible applicant or lead agency, but they could be eligible to be a part of the consortium. But without more information, it's a little difficult to tell.
Well, maybe the person who submitted that question, maybe you want to email Destiny directly and provide a little more detail on exactly what type of project you're referring to for eligibility. We have another one here. Can one eligible applicant submit multiple applications for separate eligible projects?
So one project per application.
But yes, as I read that, you can, if you are an eligible applicant, you have multiple ideas for projects and you'd like to submit multiple, there's nothing to stop you from doing that, as long as they're each in a separate application.
Does a state DOT need to apply on behalf of their rural public transit subrecipient, or can those rural transit agencies apply and submit an application on their own?
If they qualify as an eligible applicant, they can apply on their own. If they don't, then they would have to apply. You have to apply for them.
The state DOT does. Okay. Under in the NOFO under Section E, would a transfer station construction project be eligible? Excuse me. That sounds like capital, but I'm going to go ahead and let Destiny answer that.
I'm going to say yes because it does sound like capital, but I would suggest telling me more about the project. Off the top of my head, I would say yes. It's capital.
Travel training center, that building a travel training center be eligible. That sounds like a capital project as well.
Correct.
There's a question, how is regional defined for eligibility?
I'm gonna popcorn Marianne. I don't.
Okay, I think well, the way it's described in the NOFO as a state or regional level project, I think we had in mind that it's a project that's larger than just a single community. We would, in your application, I think, there's some flexibility to describe what the region is that you'll be covering. But we are looking for projects that that demonstrate that they are regional in the sense of larger than a single community.
Okay, thank you, Marianne. There's a question related to Justice 40, and I know you touched on this topic, Destiny, but the question is there a final definition of disadvantaged community for Justice 40?
I'm actually going to popcorn Tom because he's in here. I don't know if we have a final definition of disadvantaged community. I will say that under our program, most of our communities with the low income, older adults, people with disabilities would be considered disadvantaged communities.
Yeah, this is Tom Wilson from the Office of Program Management. The Justice 40 initiative is operating under an initial definition for the various communities that was put out by the White House Office of Management budget in the summer, and so that will be the definition that would be used, and it would be the same that would be included in the NOFO. And there is we just did this as well for the bus program, so we can look at adding along with the materials for this presentation. We can add, there's a fact sheet there as well that may be of help. So but everything you need should be there in the NOFO.
Great, thank you, Tom. We have about 10 minutes left, so I'll try to get through all of these questions. For the non-federal match requirement, is there a maximum amount of in-kind services allowed, or can the full match be comprised of 100% in-kind services?
So I'm going to popcorn Marianne on that, but I don't think we specified.
That's correct. I believe there is no, the NOFO permits the use of, in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, the use of in-kind services for local match is permitted. I don't believe there is a ceiling on that, but in any application, as it says in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, I think Destiny mentioned it during the webinar, there is a need to document the availability and what that in-kind match is.
Okay, thank you. Does the mobility management funding arm of this grant cover administrative cost of not only coordinating this program, but also to collect data and evaluate outcomes?
Alon, can you repeat that?
Sure. Does the mobility management funding portion of this grant cover administrative cost of not only coordinating this program, but also to collect data and evaluate outcomes?
So I'm going to say it covers the capital portion of mobility management. I know for Section 5310, some of that could be operational. We're only covering the capital sections of mobility management.
Okay. Yeah. Next question here. what is the FTA recipient ID?
The number that was in the FTA 009 ICAM number? Is that what that question is, Lon?
I'm thinking maybe this, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if this is related to trams, or if there's a section on the application that has FTA recipient ID.
Oh, the recipient ID.
Yes.
Please send me an email.
Yeah.
I think that this is Marianne. I think that might be referring to an item on the supplemental form that asks for an FTA recipient ID. If you are an FTA recipient, that would be your recipient ID that is used in the TRAM system. If you're not already an FTA recipient, but you're still an eligible applicant under this program, you can just leave that blank.
And I'm assuming if you can't leave it blank, sometimes there's certain things you can't leave blank. You may just want to put non-applicable or something if you have to fill in a certain field.
4 zeros.
Thanks,
4
Tom.
zeros. Okay, great. Okay, I think you went over this one talking about the consortiums. It's a more specific question. So this person asks, what constitutes a regional? We went over this kind of earlier. What constitutes as regional for a regional consortium? Can this be an independent city and its surrounding counties, separate localities? Example, City of Harrisonburg and Rockingham County, Virginia. Or does regional mean multi-city, multi-county? That was a mouthful, sorry.
Yeah, that sounded very specific. Just send that to me in an email, and I'll help that person out individually.
Okay, send an email, please, to Destiny for that one. Okay, here's a eligibility clarification question. My nonprofit organization does not currently receive 5310 funding from the Virginia Department of, I'm not sure there's an acronym here. I'm assuming it may be the Virginia State DOT. However, we are eligible to apply. Does this mean we are an eligible lead applicant for this FTA funding program?
You would be if you're also have the technical capacity to run a regional or statewide cost allocation pilot.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do a couple more questions because we are going to end at 3. So if I don't get to your question, please submit your question to Destiny via email. But here we have the NOFO says that private entities can serve as partners for ICAM. And you can, oh boy, this person, okay. Can you please, it says, can the please authority explain what procurement process governs for these private partners?
So we follow the requirements. They can send me an email, but we follow the requirements of the 5010, the Section 5310 circulars, and the third party contracting. So procurement policies apply to the ICAM grants.
Currently in the circular.
Yes, 5010, 5310, so 5010. 5310 and third-party contracting on our websites have the procurement requirements that govern this ICAM grant.
Okay. Someone asked, please define designated 5310 operators.
That was someone that is designated by the governor of the state. So if you're a designated recipient, you would know the governor would have designated you as an operator of Section 5310 funds. Okay, so Destiny, there's another question related to eligibility, and I think
providing a little additional information on a cost allocation pilot. So it says, what does it mean when it comes to eligibility? In quotes, having the authority to do a statewide or regional cost allocation pilot.
I would say having the capacity that being able to lead an agency, being able to run a statewide or regional pilot program. Yeah, but I will also popcorn to Marianne or Danielle if they have anything additional to add on the cost allocation section of that.
Right. I think we are looking for, we want these projects to be, as I said earlier, this is Marianne, we want them to, we're trying to demonstrate through this program the how at a statewide or regional or level larger, as I said earlier, than just one community, how coordination of cost allocation can be beneficial. You know, it's described in the NOFO. So an organization that has the authority and the capacity, in other words, has the ability and is able to coordinate a cost allocation pilot program that is available over a wide area encompassing more than one community. I hope that's clear. I don't know, Danielle, if you want to add anything.
That's correct. So it's about broadening a project to more than just one entity doing it and larger than just one community, whether that's defined geographically, a city limit, a county limit. How the application defines it is up to you when you submit that. But it's about broadening partnerships, broadening the geographic area, and then also the cost savings based on the cost allocation. So if you have, for example, one vehicle and you have more than just, someone said a senior center earlier, just the senior center or older adults riding. So you're broadening it to have more people riding, show the cost efficiency and the effectiveness of that type of coordination among the partners within your project.
We're really talking about, you know, projects that are, as Destiny said several times, we're talking about projects that involve a consortium of multiple agencies, multiple participants who have different aspects and interests of the project. We're looking for a demonstration of that type of coordination that covers a broad area. You can tell us what the region, you know, what your regional aspect is and how you define the region that you're going to be serving, and then and all of your partners and what the roles are, and through that we'll have an understanding of whether it meets the goals outlined in the notice of funding opportunity. And I think if you read the notice carefully, excuse me, if you read the notice carefully, I think it's clear what the goals of the program are. So, you know, what we're trying to accomplish with this funding. So if your organization can accomplish that, tell us about it. And that's really what we want to hear about in your organization. If you can meet the, you know, demonstrate that your project plan meets the goals that are published in the notice of funding opportunity, then you will have a high probability of success for funding under this program.
Thank you, Marianne and Danielle. I'm going to do one more question. There were a lot of questions related to this exact topic that was just discussed by Marianne, Destiny, and Danielle related to regional and what does that mean and types of projects. So I'm going to do one more. All of them are related to the regional question. Okay, let's try this one. Would a subscription fee charged for a software as a service application be an eligible expense?
Technology, IT technology. That sounds like capital.
Well, it has hit 3 o'clock and I wasn't able to get to all of the questions, but if we did not get to your question, please, again, feel free to submit your question to Destiny via email. Her email address is available on the screen right now. I'll turn it over to you, Destiny, if you'd like to say some last minute things.
I will. So I'll repeat again, the slides and the recording will be available next week on the ICAM, also known as the Access Mobility page, as well as the Notice of Funding Opportunity page on transit.dot.gov. So they'll be available for you to rewatch. I think we'll also post a FAQ with some of the questions that I've received so that you guys can go back and see any questions that were asked that we've got that have been frequent. And thanks for attending.